I'm sorry, but so far, this really isn't looking like what I had expected, considering we started out in a very residential community. Despite Halifax being the largest Canadian city east of Montreal, there's no shortage when it comes to nature. I decided to take advantage of this beautiful spring day and head to the woods. I was on a mission to hike some of the best rated, yet least known trails in the surrounding area. I had read about this 4-kilometer or 2.5-mile loop in other people's posts, and once I saw it was on a lake, I knew I had to hike it. It didn't take long after leaving the parking lot to get my first glimpses at the lake. The water was perfectly calm. Hardly a breath of wind in the air, something you can't say often in this province. From the air, you can see a hint of civilization in the background, but a lot of land has been preserved and kept wild, for both us to enjoy in the form of trails, but also the animals, many of which have this terrain as their natural habitat. Like all growing cities, Halifax and surrounding areas are guilty of taking these spaces and turning them into large developments. They've done a good job setting aside large parcels of land, however, that can't be touched. When all things are considered, I'd say Halifax, compared to many other cities, is doing a great job keeping things wild. So in Nova Scotia, the middle of June typically means it's finally starting to warm up. I know a lot of people will experience this in maybe April or May, but here we're so far north, and the way that our jet streams work, it stays a little bit cooler longer. So we're finally able to start really getting out and enjoying this nice weather right now. This trail is mostly flat, with only 66 meters or 215 feet of elevation gain. You'll have a series of mild hills, which brings you up from starting lakeside to peering down from a cliff. You'll notice on the first half of the hike that the trails are pretty straightforward and are more or less maintained. As you move further along the trail, you'll notice it turns from a classic wood trail to wide open, showcasing large expanses of boulders, which make up both the substrate as well as sitting on top of the landscape, as if placed there on purpose. Now, I want you to take a look at some of the scratch marks in these rocks, and I want you to give me an idea of what you think these are. So these were actually formed during the Ice Age. So thick layers of ice would sit on these rocks, and as they moved, they would carve out these grooves in the rocks. And that's exactly why we can see rocks like this. So at one point, this whole area was filled with ice, and as it melted, these rocks were slowly released and then left into place. As the trail changes, so does the scenery. After walking through such dense forest, which are found all throughout Nova Scotia, these open walking paths felt remarkably out of place. It's here you're reminded that you aren't in the middle of nowhere. The homes of newly created subdivisions can be seen just off the edge of the trail. It doesn't stay here long, however, as the trail quickly cuts inward, leading you back to the lake where you started. So one thing that I'm finding with this trail, because the trail's pretty much just made up of these rocks, it's very easy to lose your way. And I strongly recommend coming with a map or a guide. So I don't have a map. I use All Trails app, and for me that's fantastic because it can take my GPS coordinates. I can see exactly where I am, and right now I can see that I'm off trail, so I'm just going to backtrack a little bit, try and hook up with the right trail, and get back on track. Okay, so I got lost again, but this is actually the way that I'm supposed to go, even though it doesn't really feel like it. I was taking what seemed to me like the easy route, and it turns out, am I supposed to go this way or this way? So if you're new to my channel, you probably don't know yet, but I tend to get lost fairly often. And that's why I rely heavily on these apps, especially on trails like this where there's so many options. Now, I'm not saying that I get lost when the trail's cut and dry, but in places like this, there are so many little side branches, and it's so important that you have just a way of figuring out where you're at, whether that's with a physical map or with an app like what I have.
Back on the trail, it was time to sit back, relax, and grab a drink. Be sure to bring lots of water with you as you hike. Dehydration can sneak up on you quickly, and can easily turn an enjoyable hike into an unpleasant experience.
So one thing that I recommend you do when you go hiking is take a backpack with you. It's super handy. I have mine here from FE Active. So today I've got things like my water bottle, my first aid kit, my drone, and it just makes things so much easier when you're going on these trips. Now this one in particular is really good, although I don't think I'm going to need it today, but this is a waterproof backpack and it makes it so good for hiking. So if you happen to get caught in some bad weather, you can throw your stuff in here, you can throw your camera back in here, and you're not going to worry about it getting ruined.
Back on track, I headed down to enjoy some more views of the lake. I was a little surprised when I came across a man, bearing it all, as he enjoyed his, well, what he thought was a secluded location, in the warmth and the sun. I decided to spare your eyes and simply tell you the story and put some pretty pictures of the woods instead. What happened to be a well-marked and well-maintained first half quickly declined in what can only be described as the forgotten second half.
So far, the second half of the hike has been a lot less popular, and by that I mean the paths are more narrow and they're more filled in with brush. But you still get amazing views like this, so definitely continue all the way around the lake if you have the chance.
It surprised me a bit, as the second half seemed just as beautiful as the first. Perhaps many who come to this area are simply looking to access the lake, and with the homes located in the first half, the second is only left for those looking to complete the entire loop around the blue waters of Colpitt Lake. For those of you who have seen several other of my hiking videos, you'll know there's a direct correlation between trail quality and my abilities to get lost. Already once in this video have I been turned around, but do you think that would prevent it from happening again? No, of course it wouldn't.
So, I have lost all sense of where I am. I've been bushwhacking for the last little bit. I finally climbed to the top of this rock to see if I can get a sense of where the trail went to, because it seemed as though I was following the trail, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared, and I really don't feel like bushwhacking the rest of the trail. I know I'm getting closer. I do have the app, but I don't understand how I could be on trail for so long and then all of a sudden it dry up and disappear. And now I'm on what looks like the trail, but I don't actually see anything that resembles a trail.
With the use of my GPS and trail map, I was eventually able to reconnect with the trail. Although I don't mind getting lost, being by yourself and getting lost was a completely different feeling. I honestly was quite relieved when I was able to pick up the trail once again.
Thank goodness. It wasn't long before I decided I was just going to bushwhack, and I was able to reconnect with the trail. So I really don't know how I managed to lose it in the first place, but it is a very, very good feeling that I was able to find it again.
On the way out, I toyed with the idea of giving up on these local trails and sticking with those which were better kept and more well known. What do you think I decided? For now, it will remain a mystery. You'll have to come back for another video to find out. To learn more about what we have here in Nova Scotia, come read one of our informative travel guides on our website at joshuatravelguide.ca. Looking for something a little more hands-on? Why not join us for a guided tour as we explore the region's best attractions? We offer everything from an afternoon jaunt to a 3-day excursion, allowing you to be immersed in everything Nova Scotia. Like the video? Why not do us a favor and share it with a friend? Because together,
we could share the world.